G'day guys, and welcome to She'll Be Right Garage. We can see Deathproof is now in the main bay. That means rally season is upon us. Now, we've been talking about it for a while. We're finally getting around to it. We have a test and tune day that we are in reserve for. It's been a while since we've done anything with this car. It's been something like 8 months or so. We've got a long list of things to take care of after the last rally, as well as some modifications. We've got to deal with brake issue, we've got to deal with leaking fuel tank, we've got our destroyed front end where the up control arm ripped out of the chassis, we've got power steering that's since failed, and a bunch of other little things. So let's get on board and let's get it done. And just quickly guys, we've now got some merch available if you want to help support the channel. We've got them in 3 different colours and a whole bunch of sizes, and they're available for 45 bucks delivered anywhere in Australia. And of course these are in conjunction with our other methods of support, including our PayPal account if you wish to donate directly, and of course our Will It Start content. We're always looking for new vehicles to get up and running, so make sure you check out our links in the description for all the details, and if you send us through a photo of you wearing our merch, we'll chuck that up in one of our videos as well. Back to our main content. First job is to drain this fuel tank and find our leak. Certainly looks like some telltale over here from previous repairs. We'll put a bit of air pressure in there and some soapy water. Well, there's no obvious telltale sign from the get-go. However, we're going to fit a tank liner regardless. I do suspect once it gets a bit of pressure, it will start weeping again. So even though the tank looks pretty clean and solid inside, we'll still go ahead with our tank cleaner. We just want to make sure that all our surface areas are primed for adhesion. And I'm suspecting that even though we didn't get any bubbles, the leak is probably occurring due to temperature changes, expansion, contraction and vibrations. And I really don't want to muck around on a 90-odd-year-old tank anymore with repairs, and the tank liner will take care of it just fine. So after rinsing and draining the tank, we've got our Floodmaster gear drying it out in preparation for our liner. I think in the meantime, we're going to pop these fenders off and see just how bad these up control arms are. So now as we have a closer look, we can see we're bloody lucky that the whole thing didn't shear out. If we take a look here, that bolt is now flopping around loose. It is pulled all the way through that mounting bracket, and you can see it's all bent rearwards. That's not how it's meant to be. You can see that is the correct way that it's meant to be mounted. So that's certainly something we're going to have to deal with later when we build our completely custom upper control arms. So in the interim, our tank has dried out. So we'll now continue on with our tank liner and fit the whole lot back together. Moving back to the front of the car now, we've actually had one of our 12 volt on-off switches fail for the power steering. We did mention that earlier. And we've also had a seal fail in the steering rack. You can see quite the puddle that's formed here, and it's actually the top seal that comes right along here where the steering knuckle joins up. That'll do it. No more leaking. Next on the list is a brand new starter motor. Last time we went out, we did have some issues with it getting very lazy and tired. Whilst it was starting perfectly fine when it was cold, as soon as the engine warmed up, it was no good. Starter motors and creek crossings just do not mix well. That's better. Next up on our little list of jobs is to redo the exhaust on the left side. Fortunately, it's taken a beating and it's actually completely missing. Alright, so moving on guys, we've got the next issue that's been plaguing us for a while, and that has been some lock brakes. So last time we went out, I approached the corner, hit the brakes, it didn't release, caused me to spin out, it was part of the bloopers. So look, we've got to essentially diagnose what's going on here, so check out what it's doing. So take a look at our handbrake here. Normally it'll pull back before it gets a bit of tension. However, once we apply the brakes, there's a lot of tension here instead because the entire circuit is now pressurised. And so what's been happening on the rally circuit is that I'm applying the brakes, and I've noticed that every time I've gone to apply the handbrake, it's already tensioned up, which tells me that the pressure is still maintained from the master cylinder, or potentially some binding linkages. So we need to take ourselves a closer look. We've got to replicate it and then find out if the linkages are binding or if it's actually the master cylinder that's got to go. And so try as we might, guys, we cannot replicate this fault. Off camera, we did heat the hot rod up, we got it up to temperature, we ran it in gear with the brakes applied, still didn't fail. That said, my thoughts are that it's not a binding issue from the pedals themselves. They seem to have no trouble whatsoever. I do think under race speed, we are getting a lot more heat through this master cylinder, and we're probably having an issue with the piston returning. So better safe than sorry. We're going to swap it out with a new one and then see how we go. Up, down, up, down, up. A quick look inside that master. There's a lot of grit in there. So I think I can say with confidence that was probably our brake culprit. Alright, so now it's time to get on to the main part of this video. It's the big job. It's the full redesign and mounting of the upper control arms. It has been something we've touched on before, as something that we wanted to do. Now, for those who aren't aware, it's a HK Holden front end. It's a double A-arm top and bottom. It's an unequal length A-arm, and it does have quite a few inherent issues with rallying. So what we're going to do is go to the whiteboard, and I'm going to show you the reasons why it's an issue and what we're going to do to fix it. So what I've got here, guys, is on the left-hand side here, we've got the A-arm, and we've got the McPherson strut on our right hand side. So in your typical large family cars that you find in Australia, Chrysler, Ford, Holden, it's a double A-arm setup, and your McPherson strut is what you find on an Escort, on a Celica, on a Stanza, WRX, Evo. These are the kinds of front ends that are doing well in rallying. So we're now going to zoom in onto the double A-arm setup. I've over exaggerated this upper control arm being really short compared to the lower control arm, and I've actually created 4 different locations. We've got droop, we've got ride height, we've got horizontal, and we've got fully compressed. Now the first one here goes straight up and down. It's in black. We can see that as it starts to go up to ride height, the top of the red line here on the upper control arm is swinging outwards. As we get to level, you can see the blue line also swings outwards. And then when we get to our high point, at full compression, we can see the purple line here swings inwards. So to over exaggerate it, we're starting straight. As we go up, we're creating positive camber. We then even out, and then we go to full negative camber. So that's quite a bit of variation on that front end setup. Now it's time to move over to the McPherson strut. These lines are all interlocking with each other virtually. So as we go up, we've got the red, we've got the blue and the purple nearly all in line on top of each other. So much so that I can't even really differentiate it for this video. So what this means is, as the travel goes up and down, our camber is almost not changing whatsoever. So why the inherent issues in these 2 different designs? If we take a look at our double A-arm system, when we have our negative camber on full travel, this is ideal on a tarmac racetrack, for instance. The body of the car will roll over, and as it rolls over, it will create pressure, it will compress, and it will mean that we get negative camber. But because of the body roll, we're going to have a flat surface contact area with the tyre and getting maximum grip. The McPherson strut, on the other hand, is not so good with that. But this is where the McPherson strut can shine on a rally track. Because what's happening on a rally track is you can be doing 150 kilometers an hour in a dead straight line, and you've got individual wheels going up and down, and what's happening with this double A arm is that it's constantly wobbling in and out, and when it does that with its constant camber change, it's also creating a thing called bump steer, where the wheels start pointing in and out with each other. So I've been noticing Deathproof at about 150 k's an hour starts to get a little bit wandery. What we want to try and do is change this double A arm system to start functioning more similarly to the McPherson strut, which is what we want for our rallying. And so one of the fixes that we have with the double A arm is if we start to make the upper control arm closer to an equal length, we'll find ourselves with a design that won't have as much transition from negative camber through to positive camber, and we'll have something a little bit more in line with McPherson strut. So what I've now drawn on the whiteboard is a scale representation of what we currently have and what we're now proposing. So if we take a look, we've got 4 spots on the lower control arm. We've got all the way drooped down, we've got ride height, we've got horizontal height with a cross member, and we've got fully compressed height. We've done the same in purple, which is our proposed upper control arm, and in red, which is our current upper control arm. So as we take a closer look, when we look at this point here in black, it's straight up and down at 90 degrees. When we go to our normal ride height, the red goes out about half a degree positive camber. Then when it goes to horizontal height, it goes to the full degree. I know it's a little bit hard to see, I'm sorry guys, you just have to trust me on this one. Then as it goes to fully raised height, it actually goes around negative 4.5 degrees camber. Now when we look at our purple one with our proposed height, again at our normal level height, it doesn't change at all. There's no significant change that we can discern. When it's horizontal with the lower control arm, again, there's no discernible change. It doesn't go to positive. However, when we do go to our fully raised height, which is up here, it goes about 1.5 negative degrees camber, which is pretty much a total variation of 1.5 degrees with our new setup versus a full 6 degrees with what we used to have. That should make things really bloody easy and a lot more stable on track. And so moving on to how we create these upper control arms. This here is some fabrication we've done off camera and a whole heap of bracketry that is going to form the upper control arm mounting bracket, and mocked up in place. This is where they're actually going to end up sitting. And to start tying all of these together, we've gone and purchased a bunch of Camry trailing arms. They're going to provide us with the threaded rod and the rose joints. And with some more fabrication that we've done off camera, these little brackets are going to lock everything all together to help tie in our ball joints and our threaded rods with the rose joints. So, time to get all of this fabricated and in the car. keep an eye on the upper ball joint. With just a little bit of adjustment on this threaded rod, you can see just how easy it is now to adjust both caster and camber together. Bloody ripper. Alright, so we're pretty happy now. We've got our upper control arms in, a major milestone in one of the upgrades we wanted to do to Deathproof. There is, however, one more upgrade we need to do before we can start doing our wheel alignment, and that's these wheels and tyres. And so it may be difficult to see on the camera, but you can see there's a little bit of deformation here. Not a big deal on the steel rims, but unfortunately as we start to go quicker, we're bashing these in a hell of a lot more. And as we saw in the last rally we went out, we had 2 flat tyres in the one stage. No bloody good. And so now it's time to introduce our solution. We've got some lovely alloy wheels now. They're going to be a little bit tougher, harder to bend. They will crack in a large enough incident, but look, generally speaking, the fast guys are all running this, and for good reason. So they're not going to bend as easily as the steel rims do, and quite frankly they look pretty damn good, I reckon. And moving on to the topic of tyres themselves, we've been running a hard compound for the last 4 or 5 years. It's been perfectly fine, but really it's time to step it up a bit. So here I have some softs. In cold weather or rainy weather, we'll be running softs all around. And for this weekend, we're going to experiment with some mediums on the rear for the middle part of the day when it's dry, and we just want to see what kind of difference it can make. The theory being that the softs will overheat too much on the rear of the car, particularly with the wheel spin being rear wheel drive and all the rest of it. So on the warmer, dry days, medium's probably going to be the go to keep it all with traction, and hopefully not falling apart either. So I'm looking forward to actually testing the difference that this car has with some soft rubber. Again, all the fast guys are pretty much running it. The really good guys can run it with the hard compound, but I'm not there yet. Okay, so now we've got some weight back on the car with the doors back on and the front bar loosely fitted. So whilst these fenders are off, it's going to be easier to do the wheel alignment. And we're going to do it here at home using a digital level here. So this will basically tell me to 0.1 of a degree where I'm at. So we're aiming for 1.5 degrees negative camber, 4.5 degrees caster, and pretty much dead even toe in. And we're going to use the tape measure for this side of it. But basically, like so, we'll be able to do our measurements, and using the ball joints we'll be able to do the same thing measuring inside here. So not the most efficient way of doing it, but we can do it at home on account that this is an unregistered vehicle, and of course it's cheap. There we are, 88.5, that means 1.5 degrees negative camber. And on that note guys, We've got everything down to 0.1 of a degree tolerance and 1 millimeter in terms of toe. I'm pretty happy with the results that we got. We've never had an alignment this good before. Can't wait to see what it does in the forest. Now it's time to get it back together. That'll do it. And that's going to have to wrap it up, guys. I had some intentions to do some headlight mount brackets. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. As of right now, it is the day before rallying, test and tune. When this video gets uploaded, it will be the actual day of the test and tune at 10 AM. That's when we start. Now, PK has, unfortunately for her, been stitched up into being my navigator for this event. So as part of testing for Deathproof, whilst I want to test the tyres and the front suspension, I also want to get PK trained up on the navigating. I wouldn't say she's necessarily that interested, but she said she'll give it a go for me. So guys, please drop a comment on there, give some words of encouragement for her. It's going to be a big deal to get in the car and actually go at some proper race speed and to navigate at the same time. And of course, next week, we're going to give you the results of all of our hard work this time. All right, guys, catch you on the next one. Cheers. Oh, come on. Fucking sprays that never fucking work. Fucking shit fucking bottles. Oh. Get off, you piece of shit. Fuck's sake. Ouch. Oh, get on, you prick. Are you for real, cunt? Every tire's inflated except this one.